Welcome back, friends. Our friend Andy Mattingly is here from our sponsor, Forum Credit Union, with today's Smart Money Minute. Andy, today you're teaching us how living frugally can impact our emotional and our financial well-being.
Yes.
All right,
yes.
let's get right into it, okay? So what are some of the biggest misconceptions about living frugally?
Well, you know, people think frugal living means that you're going to do without with stuff and go back to a simpler life. That's called homesteading. Frugal living is more about putting all of your resources to what makes you really happy and then cutting out the expenses that don't contribute to your happiness. So that's why people need to really understand that that's what frugal living is. It doesn't mean cutting out lattes. If you love lattes and talking to your favorite barista, then you cut other expenses so you can do that every day.
I gotcha. Or maybe make a latte at home if you want.
Exactly.
And maybe you go every other day to your favorite coffee shop.
Exactly.
So what are some of the most important frugal moves that would help someone financially?
Well, you know, I think it all starts with, first, you have to define what makes you happy. So if you like to travel, then don't buy a big luxurious home. Most people can't do that and travel all the time, so downsize, and then you start putting that money away so you can do all the traveling. It's other things like, you know, basic common sense, like having smart shopping habits.
Yeah.
You know, don't buy things that you aren't planning to. You know, do comparison shopping, things like that. So it's just really important to prioritize those things. And to also remember that, like, if you only view a car as something to get to work, you don't need to buy the brand new car. You buy a car that gets you to work. You know, find value in those things.
Yeah, what's functional as opposed to kind of the luxury item that you may want.
Exactly.
So this was interesting. When we were prepping for this conversation, you said that living frugally can help our emotional well-being, not just our financial well-being.
Yes.
How does that work?
Well, so if you've defined what you want to do, you're going to do things that make you happy, right? So you're putting your money to that, and you don't have to have this angst that, well, I can't do everything I want, I'm missing out. So you start cutting out those things that don't matter, you know, lowering those expenses, and then you have this opportunity to do things that you really want to do. And because you've set goals, people that have goals and attain them automatically have, you know, that release of positive energy, so they feel better. So all of a sudden you're doing all these things to make yourself feel better, and you quit worrying about your finances because you know what you're going to do, and then you're doing things with that money to make yourself happy. I mean, we don't work just to make money. We work to make money to have fun.
Sure,
so.
yeah, and that's one thing that you've talked about in Smart Money Minutes in the past, too, is building those goals doesn't have to be this crazy journey, you know, especially if you've got a guide maybe from Forum to help you out with that. But building those goals along the way and incorporating fun into that is really, really interesting. So what are some of the most important frugal moves that we can do?
Well, you know, I think, you know, first is to find those things that, you know, you can get the joy out of.
Yeah.
But then it's also looking at where places that you can maybe cut expenses back on. So, you know, we've talked a little bit about this, but maybe it's just even in how you do things with, you know, what you want to do with things like your exercise. Maybe that's where you're like, I don't want to pay for the gym membership anymore and all of that. I'm going to work out at home, and I'm going to be disciplined to do that. Maybe it is, like you said, not a latte every day, but every 3 days, and do the rest at home. So it's finding all those opportunities. Maybe it's the, you know, I just read a number that people spend over $250 a month on subscription services.
Oh my gosh.
So maybe you need to go back and look and see if you need that many. And I didn't believe it till I started counting up some of mine, and I'm like, oh wow, you know, maybe people do spend more than that. So it's those little things that you can do.
You mentioned discipline.
Yes.
Does this mentality, does it have to be all in?
Well, it has to be all in that you're deciding that you're going to define a goal at what makes you happy. But you don't have to do everything that I've talked about. You can start with 3 or 4 things. Like one of them is always looking for value. People think when you say frugal living that you're going to buy everything used, but really frugal living means finding value. Maybe the new item is the better thing that's going to last longer and you won't have as much expense over time. But so start with 3 or 4 of those things, but you have to have a mentality that you are going to eventually get to this whole lifestyle.
Yeah, and then later in life you're going to thank past version of you for those simple steps that you made. Andy, where can people get in touch with you at Forum?
So, you know, at forumcu.com or at Forum Talk are great places to, you know, find out more information about this and about Forum, because we love to help people.
That's great. Such helpful and, might I say, free advice, especially when you're watching Indy Now. Andy, thanks so much, and enjoy the holiday weekend.
Thank you. You too.
We'll see you next week. Thanks. So it's time to check in with Jillian. Jillian,